If I told you that this Edison format deck plays 6 copies of Stratos and 3 copies of Pot of Greed, would you believe me? Starting with the main deck, I have 3 copies of Flamwell Firedog. With how Edison format looks right now, 1900 statline is actually really good for normal summon. You can run over things like the Blackwing monsters, Elemental Hero Stratos, Super Nimble Mega Hamster, Dark Refer, Armageddon Knight. There's plenty of targets for you to run over and then summon Magician from your deck, which I also play 3 copies of. However, my main concern with Flamwell Magician is that it's just a brick. The point of playing the Flamwells is so you can utilize Rekindling, which is just a soul charge for these two. However, if you draw Rekindling and you don't have the Flamwells, it's just a dead card. But at least you have Rekindling, so you can draw into one of the 6 cards to just make it live. Drawing Dog is obviously pretty good because he's your starter. However, drawing Magician is pretty weak. It is pretty much a normal monster with 1400 attack, but it is a tuner. Some cards utilized with Flamwell Magician might be Secret Village of the Spellcasters, Dandelion for its fluff tokens, or maybe Gravekeepers so you can synchro away with the Flamwell Magician. However, none of those strategies really aimed to do what I wanted to do with this deck. It was just too slow or too inconsistent, or when you did your Flamwell push, you just got trapped with no good way to utilize those resources. If you summon Flamwell Magician to synchro and your board just gets hit by Torrential Tribute, even if you then can Rekindling back your Flamwell Magician to make a synchro with another monster the following turn, you just use a lot of cards just to make an 8-star synchro, which probably is not winning you the game because they don't really advance their game state in any meaningful way. You can make Thought Ruler, Colossal, RDA, or Stardust to run something over. But those cards aren't a continuous +1 like Black Whirlwind, or what the Frog deck is able to do with its Monarchs. Nor can you go super fast like Vayu Turbo and end the game in 1 turn. So as a mid-rangey deck, these Flamwells just aren't doing what you want them to do. However, I found a perfect engine to utilize with these cards, which aims to alleviate the issue of just drawing a Flamwell Magician, and it just being a brick in your hand with no good way to convert it. And that is the gadgets. 2 green gadgets, 2 red gadgets, and 2 yellow gadgets. Whilst these cards seem puny on their own, when you can just normal summon a gadget, replace itself, poke for a bit of damage maybe, and then next turn you have the option of summoning Flamwell Magician to make a synchro. Even if they torrential you there or they have an answer to your synchro that you make, your Rekindling is now live by bringing back a Flamwell Magician, and the gadget replaced itself, so you already have 1 more gadget in your hand to summon the following turn, should you want to. And in some games you can do absolutely incredible plays with the gadgets and various tuners that I play in this deck, but we'll talk about that later. Gadgets are notoriously bad for running over large attack monsters, so in this deck you want some other cards that can help deal with their larger than 1400 monsters, which pretty much every deck can present. And since this deck also wants tuners to synchro with, I decided a perfect card would be Deep Sea Diva, along with 1 Gilman. Deep Sea Diva is a 1 card level 5 synchro, because you can normal summon Diva, summon Gilman from your deck, and make a synchro. You can also do Diva summon Diva, and then you have 2 tuners to synchro with. Should you have 2 gadgets, you can make 2 6-stars, or you can make an 8-star, by making a 6 and then laddering up into 8, with the Diva and a 6-star. The Diva package makes for a great starter and a good way to extend your plays. And the last monster is 1 copy of Kaia's the Shadow Monarch. I wanted just 1 more card in my deck that could help me deal with established fields, and Kaia's deals with just about anything. It is also nice to have a 6-star that you can synchro with the Diva to make a Dark End, or any level 8 really. And when you're in a stalemate with the gadgets, it can be nice to just sack it for a Kaia's, to start applying real pressure with it. Then for the spells, I have 3 copies of Rekindling. Rekindling might be one of the best top decks in late game in Edison format. It's not like Dad where you have to have exactly 3 darks. And whenever a Flamwell Firedog could connect and summon a Magician from the deck, you already have 2 targets with its effect. And it's not like Rekindling negates the effects in any way or prevents them from attacking. If you summon Firedog and Magician, you can kill another monster with the Firedog, summon another Magician from your deck, and with a gadget you can then make 2 level 8s. Then I have 3 copies of Magic Planter, and why this card is really good will become apparent soon. But I felt this deck just had to have more power plays, and Magic Planter is actually very good with some of the cards we play in this deck. And Planter's a deck for Rekindling can be game winning. Then for the traps, starting with the continuous ones for Magic Planter, I have 2 copies of Ultimate Offering. I think something like this is the best way to play offering gadgets in Edison format. By having various tuners, like Magician and Diva, and even Caius to tribute over a gadget with Ultimate Offering, gives your deck the power plays that it just didn't have before. Something like Machina gadgets doesn't really play this card because they can't convert the bodies. And an issue with Ultimate Offering in other decks like Zombies for example is that a lot of the time it just doesn't do anything. Ultimate Offering is really only good if you can use it multiple times in a turn. If it's just a double summon, then it's not really good enough. If you can use this card and it gives you a +3, 4 or even 5, that's when it actually becomes worthwhile to set this card, pass a turn and then play on the following turn. And also with the gadgets, you can readily just summon these guys turn 1, search another gadget and then set Ultimate Offering. Even if your opponent has an out to Ultimate Offering, in like MST for example. It's not like you just passed turn and didn't do anything at all. Which could be an issue in the zombie deck for example, where you kinda just have to keep your cards in the hand with Ultimate Offering. Because you don't want to commit them into their field so they can just run them over. But in this deck, each gadget will replace itself, so it's naturally just a free +1 if you summon it and then they kill it. And there's even some neat plays that you can do to play around certain traps your opponent may have. If you go end of their battle phase, use Ultimate Offering, spam the board with a bunch of monsters in gadgets, divas, or flamvels, or maybe even Caius them. And then you just go first action, make a Stardust. Then you can just freely play on into their Torrential Tribute. But we need to play more continuous traps for Magic Planter to be consistent. Thus I'm playing 2 copies of Royal Oppression in the main deck. Even if Royal Oppression would conflict with your own Stardust Dragon should you make it, and try to negate their MST when they try to pop your Royal Oppression. The boards you can make in this deck with Ultimate Offering can be so impressive that it doesn't matter if your 1 Stardust trades with MST and then doesn't come back because they can negate it in the end phase. And if you have an Ultimate Offering in play and you would like to make some special summons to actually advance your game, well, you can either send it with Magic Planter to draw 2 cards after you negated their special summon with Royal Oppression, or you can flip up your own Royal Decree, negating your own Floodgates, and make a play with Diva, Rekindling, or the gadgets. This deck plays a lot of traps, so there is a chance of you Royal Decreeing yourself and then kinda losing outright to your opponent beating you down. But similar to other combo trap decks like Zombies, which can also main deck Royal Decree, shutting down your opponent's traps, you can, in a similar sense to Oppression, send away the Royal Decree with Magic Planter, or make a Bryanak and bounce it back to your hand. Or you just deal with the fact that you have Decree in play, and your traps are dead. But your board of various synchros is so formidable that it doesn't really matter if you can't activate Bottomless Trap Hole. So this gives us 6 continuous traps to send with Magic Planter. And I'm also maining a 7th, in Call of the Haunted. Maybe not the strongest card in this deck. If you just bring back a gadget, it doesn't really do anything. But you can still call back various synchros, or various tuners just to get the conversion of the gadgets. And then you can either Bryanak to bounce back the call, or send it with Magic Planter to draw 2 cards. This gives us 7 total in the main deck, and there's even more in the side deck, which we'll talk about later on. Then for the other traps, I have 3 copies of Dimensional Prison. Deep Prison is really good in this deck. You play a bunch of gadgets that are puny monsters, and really want to make sure that when you summon a gadget, you can make it stick. Both because you can synchro it away, but also because if your opponent has a bigger monster than you, then your gadgets can't attack directly. As I'm only playing 6 gadgets, the grind game is finite, and thus you would like to close out the game as early as possible. So prisoning away the monster and then poking for 25 for example with 2 gadgets is exactly what you're trying to do. And along with that, I also play 2 copies of Bottomless Trap Hole. 1 Karma Cut, because you have plenty of discards in the gadgets or flamvels. 1 Torrential, 1 Mirror Force, 1 Solemn, and 1 Dust Shoot. So whilst this is a pretty large suite of traps, and your Royal Decree then would be able to negate all of these, thus you can't activate them. You just need to be mindful of when you actually use the Decree and if you really need to use it. Because whilst the Decree might stop their 1 trap, if it stops all of your own, and you didn't really need to use it, that might not be worthwhile. For example, if they're trapping a gadget, you might just be fine with that. Then for the extra deck, I have 1 copy of Magical Android, 1 Cataster, 1 Gaia, 1 Bryo, 1 Goyo, 1 Black Rose, 1 Darkened, 1 Thought Ruler, 1 Colossal, 1 RDA, because he's 3k. Also, you can kind of struggle against the dupe subblock, so if they have sub and dupe in defense, you can make RDA, attack over dupe, and then pop both. 2 copies of Stardust, 1 Mistworm, and 2 copies of Chimeritic Fortress Dragon. That's it for the extra deck. For the side deck, I have 1 Kaiku, 2 copies of Fossil Dino Patches of Follow, A very neat play in this deck is that you can use Royal Oppression to set Apache in their turn, post side, and if they don't expect it, they just run into it thinking that you set something to survive. You flip the Apache up and just regeki their field. Or you just summon your slew of monsters with Ultimate Offering, made various synchros, and then you just last action summon Apache before battle phase, you can play around Gores. So there's some neat tricks with Apache in this deck for sure. Then I have 2 copies of Cyber Dragon, 1 Lightning Vortex, 1 MST and 1 Dust, 1 Light Imprisoning Mirror, 2 Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, and 2 Master Restrict. I'm playing all of these continuous floods because of Magic Planter. For example, against the Frog deck, I want to take out Royal Decree, but I don't want to take out all copies of Magic Planter, because this card is still very good by being able to sack your Floodgate or Continuous Trap after you've utilized it. So for example, against Frogs, I'd take in 2 copies of Mask of Restrict, and against Vayu Turbo, I'd want to take out Royal Oppression, thus I can put in Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. And similarly, when I play against Lightsworn, I want to put in Light Imprisoning Mirror, and I want to take out Royal Decree. But I also want to take out 1 or 2 copies of Magic Planter, depending a bit on the list they're playing and how they play. Might lead me to still keep in 1 or 2 of this. However, Magic Planter against Lightsworn is much worse than other decks. Whilst I'm obviously keeping in Ultimate Offering and Royal Oppression against that deck. They have Lila, Raikou, JD. They have various ways to deal with the Royal Oppression or Ultimate Offering, especially with Lila or Raikou just being able to pick either of these away. My Magic Planter could be dead because they just pop my Continuous Trap. So there are some matchups where you actually take this card out because of those aforementioned reasons. And then for the last 2 cards on this side, I have 2 copies of Pulling the Rug. Obviously a great card against any normal summon reliant deck with activated effects on summon. But that's it for the deck profile. Have you guys found any other ways to utilize Magic Planter in Edison formats? By either pairing it with something like Ultimate Offering or Limiterverse? Let me know in the comments. But until we see each other again, thank you for watching and have a good rest of your day. If you enjoy my content, make sure to also subscribe to my second channel, linked in the description box down below. There I'll be posting more personalized and exclusive content.